the world was coming to an end. And I wonder why. Is it perhaps because of the New Hampshire primary? A lot of folks talking about it today, including us. Obviously, this is a very important day for Nikki Haley, taking on former President Donald Trump. Word is that if she does not reign victorious, well, quite honestly, this could be the end of her presidential bid.
Well, that's what the pundits are saying, and we'll have to see what happens today. I don't know about you, Guy, if you're a football fan or not. I know I am. And right now, this season is just like the NFL playoffs. It's very exciting. Anything and everything can happen, and you can have surprise winners and surprise losers. And so we'll see what happens today up in New Hampshire. I give her a lot of credit for hanging in this fight and doing as well as she has. I think either way that Republicans are going to come out of this strongly. And I look forward to what happens after today. None of us can really say for certain. And like I said, anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can happen. But it's definitely has shown thus far that former President Trump is really, well, shall I say, gone off with the horses, as they say. I mean, really leading this race unlike any other. How crucial is it for Nikki Haley to actually come out victorious?
Well, again, the pundits are saying that it's crucial for her to carry this momentum forward coming out of New Hampshire. So even a close win up there is going to feel victorious for her. She's got a big challenge ahead of her in South Carolina. So it would help her to be able to build momentum coming out of New Hampshire.
Yeah, it's interesting you touched on that. Word is just about an hour ago, we understand that there was a memo released within her campaign focusing on Super Tuesday. Of course, 26 states would have voted by that time. And so does it appear as though that's already the focus, that New Hampshire is pretty much in the background now and she's moving on?
You can't take anything for granted. And so you have to prepare for going into Super Tuesday. You cannot let that slide. So it wouldn't surprise me that there's chit chat about that. But the clear focus right now is getting her out of New Hampshire with at least the close semblance of a victory so that she can carry this forward. I really hope that, and I'm not playing favorites here at all, Guy, but what I'm saying is that to me, it's really a travesty in some ways that you have so few voters that are in Iowa and New Hampshire. I mean, the combined populations of those two states is about, 3.6 million people, something in that order, which means that maybe 1.3 of the citizens in this country are able to vote. And that doesn't even mean that those are eligible voters. So then the number narrows down. And so you have a very small sliver of people that are potentially determining one of the most consequential presidential elections of our time. So personally, I would like to see more of a fight. I would like to see people have more choice in this. We're down to 2, but it would be great for more Americans to have a greater say in what the outcome of this election is.
Yeah, once again, folks, if you're just joining us, you're watching the Fox 5 Live Zone. We are speaking with Stacey Sauter, the vice chair of the Montgomery GOP. Montgomery County GOP, I should make mention of. Stacey, it's funny, you just talked about the voter turnout and how there perhaps is a lack thereof because of the amount of people in those states. I was reading earlier that they were expecting a major turnout today because of the weather. A high of about 25. Hard to believe that's warm enough for a number of folks to come out and cast their vote. With that being said, I'm thinking about what's happened as of late surrounding President Trump. But we know that Ron DeSantis has actually dropped out of the race, as have a number of other folks, and really supported President Trump. What do you think that means for his campaign?
I don't know. I can't say with any certainty. All I know is that DeSantis, unfortunately for him and for his supporters, had very anemic polling up in New Hampshire. And so I don't think that his supporters jumping to Haley or Trump will make that big of a difference. And I think, Trump obviously has very great momentum right now. So we're going to see here, guys. It's going to be very, very interesting. All eyes are on Nikki Haley right now because at this moment, it is Donald Trump's race to lose.
Yeah, polls close today in New Hampshire at 7 p.m. Can I get a prediction from you? It's as if we're betting, Stacey. Any predictions for this evening?
No.
A woman of few words. I appreciate that.
Like I said, Guy, anything and everything can happen, and it does.
Yeah, yeah, and we've seen that time and time again throughout many elections that have actually occurred. Of course, I guess we can all assume that the focus will now once again be on South Carolina. Anything you want to add to how important that race is as well?
Well, I find it really interesting if you want to take a look at the Democrat side that, the Democrats overplayed their hand by not getting Joe Biden on a primary ballot up in New Hampshire. And so if he doesn't win up there today, South Carolina is going to be very interesting for different reasons because he's going to have to pull off a win there. It'll be interesting to see. He's got 3 competitors on the ballot up in New Hampshire. Yeah. So from that perspective, it's like I said, this is just like the NFL playoff season right now in politics.
Yeah, that or the movies coming soon to a theater near you. However, in this case, it's the real deal. It's real life.
Exactly.
Well, once again, we've been chatting. Stacey Sauter, Vice Chair of the Montgomery County GOP. Stacey, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right, guys. Once again, Miss Stacey Sauter, representing Montgomery County with regard to the Republican Party. So kind of her to join us right here. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I touched on it yesterday. We're referring to the D.C. Summer Youth Program. It's coming back. And believe it or not, I know it's winter, but we're talking about the summer already. We're going to be joined by the director in just a minute. You're watching the Fox 5 Live Zone. You're officially in the LZ. Can I say hi to Becky real quick, please? Hey, Becky.
How are you?
I am awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I have one quick interview with the director of Department of Employment Services, and then I'll come to you.
Okay.
Dr. Morris Hughes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm coming to you in about 30 seconds. Thank you for standing by.
Perfect. No problem.
All right, guys, welcome back. It's 110 right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Emmy, by the way, hi, Emmy, my producer. Thank you so much for handling all this stuff for me. Let's put up a picture of the D.C. City Council right now. They're actually discussing the D.C. Secure Bill, of course, a major issue with regard to combating crime in Washington, D.C., proposed by Councilmember Brooke Pinto. This is the first reading, if you will, that's taking place, once again, surrounding the D.C. Secure Bill. We're going to continue to check in on that meeting throughout the afternoon, and if anything breaks, we will definitely let you know. But obviously a major issue within D.C. as crime has literally taken the city by storm. So, hey, we just made mention of the negative stuff. Let's talk about the good stuff. In this case, I'm referring to the Summer Youth Program. Yes, it's hard to believe that we're talking about that already, and, well, quite honestly, because of how cold it is outside. A major announcement made yesterday with regard to some of the folks they're actually teaming up with, and here to tell us all about it is the Director of District Columbia Department of Employment Services. Boy, that's a long title. None other than Dr. Unique Morris Hughes. Good afternoon, ma'am, and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
I,
Thank you for having me.
oh, I am so glad that you were here. So, we covered this yesterday with regard to the summer youth program, and I got to tell you, obviously, this was spearheaded by none other than Mayor Marion Barry quite some time ago. There are so many folks that I have bumped in throughout the years that say to me, "Guy, I got my first job through that program," and I'm pretty sure
Yes.
would assume that you would say the same thing. That's got to put a smile on your face.
Yeah, it's so exciting every time I bump into people and they tell me about how they had the most wonderful formative experience being in the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program. And we're excited that we're coming back for our 45th year, where over 10,000 young people will have an opportunity to get their first summer job, or maybe they're a returning student and going to be working for their third or fourth year. But it's going to be really exciting and very cool this summer.
Yeah, and you all somewhat remixed it, as my young niece would say, and that's because he teamed up with the Young Doctors Project. What's that all about?
Yeah, so Young Doctors is one of over 700 host sites that host young people for the summer for an internship career opportunity. And the Young Doctors program is phenomenal. They're based out of Howard University, and young people learn early medical health skills, the same skills that a young man who spoke yesterday had an opportunity to save someone's life based off of what he learned this summer. So we're celebrating this 45th year by highlighting all of our programs, but this Young Doctors program was so special and so unique that we selected them yesterday to highlight.
Yeah, you heard me make mention of it in my open, and that is it's hard to believe we're talking about the summer already, and it's still January.
Already.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm just sitting here
already.
astonished.
Well, the important thing that we're talking about it now is because applications open. And in less than 24 hours, I've had over 3,000 applications
Wow.
already. That's already up from what we were at last year. And we want all DC resident youth to apply. And they can do that by going to summerjobs.dc.gov.
And so walk me through with regard to what's needed in order to really implement that whole application process. I mean, we can discuss the age group one would need to be and exactly how he or she would go about to fill out that application.
Yep. So it's super easy. So you visit summerjobs.dc.gov, and that is where you would go to the center of the page, and you'll find all of the key dates and information. You'll click on youth, and you'll start an application. And the good news is, if you applied in previous years, some of that information is already retained and in the system. You have to be a young person that's a DC resident between the ages of 14 and 24. That's right, we go up to 24 years old, and those youth between the ages of 22 and 24 years old make minimum wage. You have to prove that you're a DC resident, and that's it. It's pretty easy and pretty seamless and simple.
Yeah, Dr. Morris Hughes, you are, it's no secret, you are on the forefront, the front lines, if you will, with regard to making sure that we create more awareness about this. You made mention of the gentleman that told a story yesterday, and I say it all the time. I'm a storytelling type of guy, and I hope you would share with us a story, perhaps of that, like the gentleman yesterday, or someone else you've encountered that this program really helped change his or her life.
Sure, I meet young people, all of the time, and adults. I have had young people who, have graduated from high school, but now they're young parents and they're in the summer youth employment program. I have young people who are interested in a career in public service, and they join the Marion Barry Youth Leadership Institute, which is really part of the summer youth employment program. I myself, although not from DC, worked in a summer youth employment program in another city where I worked for the IRS, and it really helped to shape my career. The young people that I encounter and the adults say the same thing. If it wasn't for the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So no matter what the story is or who I come across, male, female, 14 years old, 60 years old, they all say the same thing. Summer Youth Employment Program changed my life, and I hope will change more lives this summer.
Yeah, it gets an A+ on my list as well. I mean, you all do amazing work. You made mention of not necessarily being a native of Washington, D.C., but, well, you are now, and we accept you. We welcome you with open arms. But with that being said,
Thank
I'm
you.
curious, how would you compare what we have here in the nation's capital with some of the other summer youth employment services throughout the country?
Well, I would say that I am a DC resident, 20 years strong, but we probably have the most unique, most diverse, and most substantive program than others across the country. What makes our program unique compared to some other large cities is that we start as young as 14 years old. We go up to 24 years of age. The types of jobs that you can work in the federal government. You can work as a camp counselor for our Parks and Rec. You can work, on a computer or in video games. You name it, the opportunity is limitless. And I think that's what really makes our programming unique.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say is that we've been giving out scholarships over the last 5 years. Over 500 young people, $1.5 million we've given, and that's another unique element of our program. And so there's lots of cool things about us. I believe we have the best program in the country, and it's certainly one of the most unique and substantive.
Obviously, this is near and dear to your heart. I'm just curious, it's being spearheaded by Mayor Bowser, of course. Have you had any conversation, or is there anything you could share with us about what you and her talked about with regard to this amazing program?
Well, Mayor Bowser is the biggest supporter and cheerleader of young people in the district, and she fully believes and supports the program. Matter of fact, it was her that helped push the program to get to 24 years of age. So what I can say is that she always tells me how supportive she is and that these are great opportunities, and she wants to make sure all young people have an opportunity to capitalize on those opportunities, and she wants to make sure myself and my staff make those opportunities available.
Well, you're doing an amazing job, as is the mayor, with regard to making sure our youth get employment and stay employed. We all remember that first job. For me, it happened to be Jerry Subs.
We do.
Flipping cheesesteaks at that, and proud of it. And, well, as they say, look at me now, and look at you now.
Look at me now.
Awesome. Once again, we've been chatting with none other than the Director of the District of Columbia Department of Employment Services, Dr. Unique Morris Hughes. Dr. Morris Hughes, thank you so much for coming on the Fox 5 Live Zone. We truly appreciate you. Thank you.
And thank you for always being a supporter of young people in the District of Columbia.
You got it. All right. We'll chat soon. You've officially been LZ'd, as I like to call it, Dr. Hughes. All right, guys. How cool
Wonderful.
is that? Isn't that cool? One of the many things you're going to get a chance to see right here on this show, guys. We're live, we're local, and, well, quite honestly, we cover any and everything. Speaking of covering everything, take a peek at the calendar. Look next to the word January. Do you see something? You should. It should say Stalker Awareness Month. We're going to bring more awareness to it when we come back. You're watching the Fox 5 Live Zone. You're in the LZ. Hey, Becky, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Anything in particular you want me to touch on?
I think the biggest thing is, awareness, because I think people often think that stalking is romantic or don't even realize about online stalking and how dangerous it is. And so I think just, the point of having this conversation is to bring awareness to the fact that it's a crime. It's not romantic. It's real. But then also even trying to talk about, I think the typical stalking is not what you typically think about a person, with binoculars behind, like, in the woods looking at you. But, what I mean? So sending a message, just sending a you message that says, you look great in those pants, those blue pants today, that blue color is really looks good on you. And you're like, what? So things like that, where I think people don't realize stalking and how it can be so damaging to even your security, feeling safe, that you're being watched in a way that, in today's world where, technology, we can't live without it. but you can also stalk so easily with technology today.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Good afternoon, Ms. Sneed. Yeah, I can't hear her either.
I can't hear you. I
Okay,
can't hear you.
I could hear you. Let's try it again. Can you hear me?
No, yeah, I can't hear.
Try now. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. I can't see you. I can't
Testing.
hear
One,
you.
two, one, two, three. What about now, Ms. Sneed? Can you hear me? All right, let's go back to Becky. All right, guys, it's 124 right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Welcome back. You're taking a live look at the city of Fairfax. Mostly cloudy skies for today. Still very brisk and chilly. We'll top out in the low to mid 40s. Looks like a lot of action is going on right there in the city of Fairfax. Thanks so much for sticking around with us, guys, right here in the Fox 5 Live Zone. You know, one of the things that we happen to do on this show is bring awareness to a number of issues, one of which happens to be stalking. Now, I got to be honest with you. Quite honestly, I did not know that, well, there happened to be a Stalking Awareness Month. That's actually the case. And if I didn't know about it, well, a lot of people probably didn't know about it as well. That's why I'm pleased to bring in my next guest. And, well, she is the founder of Becky's Fund, Miss Becky Lee. Not only an advocate for domestic abuse awareness, but happens to be a friend as well. Becky, welcome to the Fox 5 Live Zone. So glad you're joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'd say I wish it could be on better circumstances, and that is, I wish we could be jumping up and down and having a great time. But that's not necessarily the case when we're talking about this issue, and that happens to be stalking. You know, so many folks, when they think of it, they just typically see it in the movies, but you know, it doesn't necessarily happen to everyone, and so as a result, there isn't necessarily a lot of awareness around it. For folks like me, quite honestly, that I didn't know about it until recently, or learning about this, what are some of the things we should know about stalking in Stalking Awareness Month?
Sure. I think the biggest piece, sort of understanding that how common stalking is. Statistics show us that 13.5 million people are stalked during this 1 year period, and that because of the facts that I think that media, pop culture, even movies often romanticize stalking, looking like playing games or being romantic or being cute. The actual implications of stalking can be very very obviously impactful and also very harsh in terms of creating everything from anxiety about going outside, but even feeling safe where you are. And so I think that understanding that stalking can look like different things, not just the typical behind closed doors, or even in the Aaron Andrews story. Remember, in the whole idea about using a peephole to watch somebody without their knowledge, but it can be sending a message or unwanted phone calls, or sending someone flowers, and knowing that their favorite flowers are yellow roses, and sending the flowers to their workplace, and then showing that person, I know exactly where you work. I always have access to you. And so things like that, where people often don't realize how stalking can happen, but also online stalking. I think in today's world where we have access, right, through social media, through technology, we have very much easy access to each other. And often I think online stalking happens so often, people often think, well, it's not that big of a deal, it's just online stalking, it's not in person. And so I think realizing that it actually is a crime and there are repercussions for that, but giving people the freedom as well as a safe space to be able to share that they're going through this without feeling embarrassed to talk about it.
Yeah, a major issue that's happening not only right here in the D.C. area, but throughout the country. You can also argue that a lot of times it happens with an unsolicited telephone call, and folks aren't really aware of that either.
Yes. That's a great point too. I mean, I think, obviously with advancements with AI today, in terms of even being able to track somebody, being able to go on these sites where you can find out someone's location, all their background information, because the fact that we often even process using our credit card, even signing up for things with personal information. And so it's not hard to find people if you want to, but then understanding, realizing how do we protect ourselves from stalking, whether it's sharing that's happening to you, because I think a lot of times, again, people are very embarrassed to share that's happening to them because they feel like, oh, maybe it's my fault, or it's not a big deal because it's just online stalking. We know that stalking is a predictor of future violence. 76% of women who were actually killed were stalked the year before. We saw that, and also as understanding that because of the fact that people don't talk about this out in the open because they're saying like, okay, well, it's just online stalking, it's very harmless. A lot of people are actually scared and embarrassed to talk about it. So a big part is sharing this space. Obviously, January being this perfect opportunity to open this space to talk about this issue, but helping people understand what stalking can look like in that specific scenario, but also realizing that there is help available.
Yeah, and I'm so glad. That's why, that's why we applaud you and all the work that you do. Of course, we're talking with Becky Lee, founder of Becky's Fund. What are some of the immediate things that I can do right now in order to bring more awareness to it, and or perhaps help someone that's dealing with something like this?
That's a great point. I think that when someone discloses saying, I think that this person is stalking, might be an ex, or might be somebody that, that is in their daily life, maybe at work. But I think the first and most important thing, especially when someone's disclosing something like this, is to believe and validate. Saying something like, I'm so sorry that you're experiencing that. I'm so sorry that it's happening to you. I believe you. What can I do to support you? Instead of saying something like, oh, it's not that big a deal. You should feel flattered that you're getting that attention. Like, that just seems like that person's being cute. It's not, don't take it so seriously. But also too, encouraging that person to document, as well as doing things you can do, things like blocking someone's phone number, even reaching out to your email provider saying, I want to block this communication, but validating that person, that what they're going through, because that's the hardest part, is being able to disclose what you're going through and then feeling that you're believed. And then obviously realizing that there are cyber stalking as well as stalking laws in every state, and understanding that there are repercussions for this. Obviously going through a process of documenting as well as going to the police to report it. But understanding, again, it's not your fault. You didn't bring this on. And stalking is a crime. I think that's very important to note, that stalking is a crime.
Yeah, not only is stalking a crime, but correct me if I'm wrong, I guess now it falls under the umbrella of domestic abuse. And if that's the case, I didn't know that.
So, the definition of stalking is any type of pattern or tactics used to create fear in somebody, whether it's through, direct access, even third party. And so it falls under, obviously, this sort of maintain this power and control. We also see, as I mentioned before, with the increase, right, the predictor of future violence, we see stalking rise, especially if somebody has left an abusive relationship. So we always say, again, creating a safe space for people to be able to share if they're experiencing stalking, and then be able to obviously get help for it and make it stop.
Yeah, we're going to make it stop. We're going to make it stop fast. We talked about what you and I can do immediately to get it done. I'm curious, with your travels and as you go out and speak at different conferences, does this appear to be a major issue, or folks approaching you and saying stalking is something that I'm dealing with or someone I know is dealing with?
Yes, because of the fact, again, that technology is so accessible. I mean, even in terms of, I think, looking at, there was a most recent study done by Norton antivirus, right? And they actually polled people, and seeing that, 34%, 40% of young people, millennials and Gen Z, where they were actually saying that they don't really mind being stalked online as long as it's not in person. So that's showing you that there's this, I think, because we often are in this space where there's sort of the murky waters about boundaries, especially being online. I think people sometimes accept it as okay. Well, saying, well, I was on this site looking up information, or it's really easy to find out somebody's background by going to their social media. I think because of that, people often don't take it as seriously unless it's something as obvious. But the fact remains that stalking is on the rise because of the fact that we can do it so easily today with the technologies that we have access to. And one of the things is obviously having this space to talk about it and say, okay, that is a crime, and you can obviously get help for it and make it stop.
Yeah, guys, I got to tell you, this is something major, and I'm so glad that you're really shedding more light on this, and I'm so glad this is happening in the month of January. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the 20th anniversary of acknowledging stalking awareness in the month of January. Is that right?
Yes. And it's interesting because why do we need a month, right, to celebrate this? But obviously it gives us opportunity to be able to say, okay, this is an important issue. It's great to be able to start off the year, right, talking about how do we keep ourselves safe, whether it's from known factors or unknown. But at the same time, too, I think even creating this space again to be able to say, I'm experiencing this. I need help to get away from this situation. What can I do? And there are resources available. We obviously invite people to visit beckysfund.org, as well as there's another website, womenslaw.org, that gives state by state sort of laws on everything from cyber stalking to even stalking, in person. But again, there are resources available, and no one should feel that they can't come forward to share their story and to get help to make it stop.
Yeah, and that's why we're calling on you, and that's why we thank you for what you do to bring about more awareness to the issue. You just touched on it, but I want to make sure that folks got it down correctly. Folks want to find out more information, the website address one would log on to?
Yes, beckysfund.org.
All right, easy as 1, 2, 3. Becky, I truly appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much for bringing more awareness. Once again, January being Stalker Awareness Month, or shall I say Stalking Awareness Month, and it's an issue that continues to plague not only our community, but nationwide. Keep up the good fight, Becky.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity again.
You're welcome. Becky Lee, right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Once again, she is the executive director of Becky's Fund and kind enough to join us this afternoon on the show. We got a lot going on. Amy, real quick, if we can, let's go back to the video of the D.C. Council. This is the cool thing about this show, guys. We're live, we're local, and we're right on it. Once again, you're taking a live look at the City Council as they discuss the D.C. Secure Bill, once again proposed by Councilmember Brooke Pinto. This is the first reading before the entire council, and something that has been an issue in D.C. Of course, I'm talking about crime. Perhaps the D.C. Council now trying to take a bite out of crime by addressing all of these issues, which, by the way, very controversial. A number of folks saying that this should not be passed, the ACLU calling it an abuse of power, and a number of other folks saying that it will just go too far. We're going to continue to follow that and so much more. You're watching the Fox 5 Live Zone. We'll be right back. It's time to celebrate and celebrate in a major way. Why? Well, because we're talking about kids and we're talking about moms, and that's always to be celebrated. Yes, we're getting set for the 14th annual National School Choice Week, which is taking place throughout the country. 123 events happening right here in D.C. Now it's time for you to find out all about it. I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by Miss Shelby Doyle, Vice President of the National School Choice Awareness Foundation. Hi, Shelby. Welcome to the Fox 5 Live Zone.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I got to tell you, this is really exciting. I don't know if you can see the smile on my face, but whenever we get a chance to talk about moms, dads, and kids, well, it always makes me happy, and I'm sure it makes you happy as well. This is a big deal. Some 27,000 events, I believe, to my understanding, throughout the country is going to be taking place, but 123 of them right here in D.C. Folks finding out about this for the first time, why don't you tell me all about it?
Well, the verb you used is the key one here, celebrate. So, the goal of National School Choice Week is to make this a fun, positive, and inclusive time when families can find out about any K 12 school option they might want to choose for their son or daughter, whether that's traditional public school, public charter school, magnet, private, online, home, or non traditional. We work with schools across the country, homeschooling groups, and families to plan fun events that help families unpack these options and start the process of choosing them for the fall.
Yeah, and of course, one of the big events that's going to be taking place will happen here in D.C. this Wednesday, right, at the Lincoln Memorial. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're really excited about this one. So, a coalition of groups led by the Black Mothers Forum is putting on a great event at the Lincoln Memorial on Wednesday, and they're trying to draw attention to the need for school choice in their community and talk about how it impacts their families. Because ultimately, this is a very personal issue for families across the country, and they want to make sure their kids have options.
Yeah, I remember that song, I Believe the Children Are the Future. You know where I'm going with that. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Well, we all know that when it comes to leading the way, there have been major education shifts within the system. How does that affect families?
So there's a ton changing when it comes to school options. If you have that sense, you're one of the majority of parents. So 58% of them told us this month they do think that their state has more options than it did last year. And in 20 states, they're right. So it's important to think about what those options might look like. Even if you checked in a couple years ago, they could be different than the last time you looked. So we're seeing expansions, particularly in the areas of public charter schools. Montana, for instance, just added them for the first time ever. And then there's been lots of growth in the private school choice program world, which are programs that help families afford the cost of private schools. Of course, DC has one of their own of that style of program. But there's really just a lot of change happening right now. Last year was the biggest expansions of school choice programs writ large that we've ever seen in a single year.
Wow, really? I didn't know that. And I think that's actually happening right now is truly amazing. I'm curious, a mom, dad watching right now, and they're saying, you know what, I want to become more involved. I want to be active outside of actually taking part in the rally, if you will, that's going to be happening at the Lincoln Memorial on Wednesday. What other things can he or she do?
So if you're a parent who wants to know more about school choice or just already passionate about it, you can start by going to our website at schoolchoiceweek.com. You'll find a state guide there, or in your case, a district guide to what these options are in your local area. And you can also find out about events happening near you. So local schools, like your local maybe public charter school, a private school, or a magnet school, are going to be planning events that are designed to bring the community in and help them consider them for the fall. So if you have a really practical question like, would I like the school that I drive by every day for my son or daughter? They may be planning an event that you can go to this week and answer that question.
Yeah, it's so funny. I tell folks this all the time. I'm a storytelling type of guy. I love to tell stories and I love to hear stories. Perhaps you could share with us one where maybe you ran into a mom or dad that actually took part in this actual program and then said, oh my gosh, I didn't know perhaps this existed, and now look what I'm doing now.
I have so many of those stories. So we talk to parents year round, whether it's on Facebook Messenger, whether it's on WhatsApp. We try to answer as many questions as we can. And one of my favorite stories that happened last year, mom was having trouble enrolling her student who did have special needs in the school of her choice. This is actually a zoned public school, and she needed help navigating that process. It was a challenge for her. English was not her first language. And so we were able to help her understand what her rights and options were in her area and equip her with the information she needed to go into that meeting and feel empowered and informed. I think parents sometimes find themselves in these meetings with people who have a lot of advanced degrees and use a lot of education technical terms, which is great. But as a parent, you don't necessarily have all that in your toolbox. And so we try to make sure parents feel like they have some expertise to bring because they know their kids best. And their voice and their perspective is a really important part of any enrollment decision or just keeping their child successful in the school that they've chosen.
Yeah, gosh, I got to tell you, this, once again, just smiling from ear to ear, knowing that something like this is actually happening. When so much bad news happens, it's always good to have some good news, and we truly thank you for what you're doing and the organization is doing in bringing it right here to Washington, D.C. One more time, folks that are looking for more information, the website one can log on to?
Schoolchoiceweek.com, and don't worry, it's up the other 51 weeks of the year as well.
I love it. Once again, Shelby joining us, Shelby Doyle, I should say, the Vice President of the National School Choice Awareness Celebration. Thank you so much for coming on the Fox 5 Live Zone today. We truly appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Check.
That's yours, right?
No, this is. See, one, two, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.